Well, ladies and gentlemen, you asked for it. You wanted a Q&A session with the famous Mr. Jerry from Alaska Rare Coins here in Fairbanks, Alaska. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so here we are again with Jerry. He is going to answer all your questions today, which, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's the least that he can do because now he's a YouTube star, so he should start answering some questions that his fans have of him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen. Since the last time I was here, I took a journalism course, and I am going to try my best not to interrupt Jerry so that you guys won't scream at me every time that I do, okay? So we had about 9 questions that were asked multiple times, and those are the ones that I chose to ask Jerry today. So first of all, let's start off by, how you doing, Jerry?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great. How does it feel to be a star now?
I don't know. I'm still driving the same old truck.
Well, maybe we can change that, all right? We'll see. We'll see if we take up a collection for Jerry's truck fund.
You don't need to.
Well, Jerry, as you know, the video that we did together here a while back talking about silver got a lot of interest, and many of the viewers had questions that I thought you could answer best. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Jerry, many of the viewers are asking if they can purchase precious metals from Alaska Rare Coins and if you can ship it down to them to the lower 48.
The answer is a qualified yes. There's only 2 of us here, so we get the things as quickly as we can. And we'll talk with people at length on the phone. Ideally, it's best, and I think you've said this to the folks prior to this, to deal with somebody locally or establish a relationship with somebody there, and that's ideal, because once you hand over the cash, you like to get something in return, you know. But we have been dealing with a lot of people through the mail over 40 years, you know, friends of ours and customers that moved away to the States, and we continue to help them because they don't have any bullion dealers in the area, or they've had a bad experience or something. But we always welcome phone calls too. If you do have somebody locally, but you're wondering if you're getting the best deal or the best advice, feel free to call us and we can tell you what we think, and hopefully that matches what you're hearing at the local level. But we can take care of things here. You know, give us a call if you don't feel comfortable, you know, dealing somewhere else. So.
All right, thank you. Now, the second question is kind of an odd question, but a good question nonetheless. Can the old $1 silver certificate still be used as legal tender?
The United States has not demonetized any of the old currency, so the answer is yes. It can still be spent. The old silver certificates had a blue seal on them, unlike the green seals that Federal Reserve notes have. They're very common. Back in the 60s, we all thought we were going to be very smart. We were going to save these silver certificates, and you could actually redeem them for silver up to a certain point. And after that deadline, you couldn't do it anymore. But the money continues to have legal tender status. We get asked that question a lot. What are those old $1 silver certificates worth? Series of 1957 and even earlier than that. The majority of them retail for about $2. They don't have much value at all. Coin dealers and dealers of currency get inundated with them over the years, and I think most of them buy them at maybe $1.10 a piece or something like that. So no real significant value other than their face value because they're so common in circulated condition. An uncirculated condition, it's a little different story.
Okay, thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me break in real quick, and I want to let you know that you need to stay till the end of this video, because at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a silver coin that I'll be giving away. So stay till the end of the video where you can find out what the instructions are for you to enter. Jerry, what is the process of selling back precious metals to you? So if I bought silver a couple years ago or whenever, and I want to sell it back to you, what process do we undergo in order for me to cash that in?
We always buy, and I think any dealer buys. And normally, like if somebody were to walk in with 1 ounce of silver, we'd pay spot for it under normal circumstances. Lately, we've been paying more because there's a shortage, as you know, and everybody else knows. There's been a time when we've paid less For instance, back in the Y2K scare, in the year 2000, everybody was afraid what would happen on January 1st with the computers. And in 1999, we sold a ton of gold and silver to people that were very much afraid of what was going to happen. Literally on January the 2nd, it all started coming back. And for 10 months of that year, all we did was buy. Well, we can't absorb everything we buy, so we have to sell ourselves to the primaries that are out there. And they're all getting dumped on. So they increase what we call their spreads on that. So rather than pay what they would normally pay us to ship it out, they're going to discount it somewhat because they're swamped with it themselves. And so they increase the buy and the sell spread that we normally would see. Now, if the commodity was to maintain that price over time, then that spread will get smaller and smaller. But that was an anomaly, and for literally 10 months, all we did was buy. And every dealer in the nation was doing the same thing. So then what you get paid doesn't match what you normally do. Once October rolled around that year, we were back to normal, and we went back up to what we normally pay for product. But we can always lock people in, and that's a concern. Some folks say, what happens tomorrow if silver goes to $100 and everybody runs into your shop to sell? Obviously, we're not going to have enough money in the world to cover everything that would walk in the door. But we have the ability to lock it in. So I just simply make a phone call on your behalf. If you were the seller, I would lock you in. I may not be able to cut a check immediately like I normally can because there's so much coming in. But it's locked in. We're going to get that payment in the mail. It's what they call a COC. When you deal with the primaries, when we buy a product and we ship it to them, we call in the trade. They ship a check or send us a check, and it crosses in the mail. So it's called cash on confirmation. So as soon as we ship, they ship a check to us.
And what do you mean by the primary, Jerry?
In the United States, there's about roughly 10 companies that deal primarily with the mints. They're the big boys, I call them. They have to do tremendous quantities to deal with the United States Mint, Royal Canadian Mint, and the other mints around the world that they establish relationships with. They have to buy quantities that none of us can afford to do. You're talking thousands of ounces of gold at a time. Tens of thousands of ounces of silver at a time.
Alrighty. Jerry, someone asked, how long should I keep my gold and or silver?
It's an individual matter, but I always tell them that I like to have, for myself, a core holding, we call it. So there's so many ounces of gold and silver that I want to just have, and I really don't care what the price does. I don't care if it goes up, sideways, or down. I'm holding it as a core holding. Now, I speculate on it sometimes. I buy when I think the price is good or the situation warrants it, I'll buy. But anything above that core holding, I speculate on. I usually am a seller in a hot market. So if you see gold rising very rapidly or silver rising rapidly or any of the other metals, platinum for instance, I'm usually a seller of anything above my core holding into a market like that. Because almost always when you see a really rapid rise, it has a fall that comes right after it. And there's very few exceptions to that. Where the problem comes in is where you see a rise that's very gentle and is taking place over time. And then I don't have any magical answers because you might be establishing a new base at that point. And that's essentially what happened during the early 2000s when we finally made up for 20 years of no movement at all, and silver moved up to a point where it's never come back down to those old levels. It was making up for lost time and lost inflation.
Is it okay to buy quad 9 silver bars with no mint marks on them?
Well, most silver bars are made by private companies, and usually they put their hallmark on there, like it's an Engelhard bar or an Old Johnson Mathey or Silvertown or something like that. But we see a lot of 1 ounce silver rounds that don't have a hallmark. I can guess where they come from because I know from experience pretty much where they come from. But it is easy for us as a dealer to test this with non-destructive methods. Have machines that you can test it and see if it's legit or not. And we do that before anything that we like to go before we buy it and before it goes out the door. We make sure that it is what it's supposed to be. But we know for the most part who makes these products. We're also aware of the ones that tend to be counterfeited. Notices go out that they're counterfeiting like Northwest Territorial Mint, which is a mint that doesn't exist anymore. But some of their products have been counterfeited in China. And we do see some of that, but we're pretty much aware of what products those are.
All right, thank you for that. And let's see here. Do you know how much over spot the U.S. Mint sells their Silver Eagles for?
Last time I checked, I think it was $2 over spot. And the reason I knew that is because we were selling at that time generic for $1.50 over spot. It was so much cheaper to get generic. And now that's what the primaries are paying, $2 over spot. So by the time they sell it to me, and I have to buy quantities also, I gotta get at least a box, 500 ounces or more, they're gonna charge a premium to us. And that premium varies somewhat, but I could always count on getting American Eagles new ones for around $2.50 to $3 over spot, somewhere in that area. Now, of course, all that's out the window because the product availability, last time I checked with my primary dealer, I couldn't even make a trade to get 2021 Silver Eagles.
Wow.
So I'm just out of the picture. And the last time I checked with them, they were wanting $7.50 over spot. So
wow.
You can see what demand can do to mess up a market sometimes. But normally they should be paying around $2 over spot unless the mint has raised that. I haven't checked that price in several years, but I think you can actually go online to the mint. And that's where I found that number originally. I just went online to the mint and explored, kind of pretending that I was going to be a big buyer, and it's just public information. It's not hidden information.
So what you're saying is that your primary bases the premium on supply and demand.
Yeah, we know pretty much what the primaries are paying to the United States Mint. I don't think that the mints usually have a certain standard what they're going to sell the product for. But the primaries, if they're getting slammed, they have heavy demand, they're going to raise what they charge for that product, because they're only going to get a certain allocation from the mint. They're competing with all the other primaries for the same quantity. And they know they're not going to get any more, so they're going to make their money off that allocation they have. And, I don't like it. I don't like it when they raise premiums, but I totally understand it. It's supply and demand. And if the demand's exceeding the supply, the price goes up.
Right. You increase the price until the market can bear a higher price, and then you know where it is, right? And the last question, Jerry, that we had from our viewers is, what is meant by the term generic silver or generic gold?
Okay. The mint products are not generic. We know what they are: American Silver Eagles, Gold Eagles, Royal Canadian Mint, Maple Leafs, or Gold Maple Leafs. But anything that's made privately is usually considered to be generic. The primary dealer we deal with is A-Mark, and they own a mint now. They bought out the Silvertown Mint in Indiana, where they make their product. They were smart to do that, to actually buy the manufacturing facility. Prior to that, I think they had their product made by Sunshine. There are not a lot of producers of product out there, and they will do product not only with their name on it, but the name of other companies that deal with them on their behalf. But all that's considered to be generic.
All right. Now, Jerry, this is a question that I've had in the past, not off of the previous video, but where do you recommend that people store their silver and gold if they buy it in quantity? Like, I wouldn't really worry too much about getting a special place to store 1 or 2 ounces of silver, but if I had 100 ounces or 50 ounces, where would you recommend that they store it?
A lot of customers buy precious metal IRAs, and sometimes the provisions in those IRAs is that they have to store it with a third party, so to speak. I absolutely don't recommend that, and because you end up paying a storage fee to some company that's not even in your town. It's usually most of those are done in Delaware, of all places, and you pay an annual storage fee for something you can't even see, touch, or feel. I'm not a fan of that. If you're going to spend your hard-earned money on metals, I think you should take possession, period. Don't leave them on account with a company. Don't take advantage. If they offer storage, Stay away from it. Don't do it. You always want to take possession of it yourself. I believe in safety deposit boxes. Some of my customers don't. I like them because no matter where you hide it in your house, fire can find it. You can hide it so a thief can't find it, but fire finds it all. And then you have a puddle of metal sitting somewhere in the dirt, and that doesn't do you any good. The only headache is with silver, because silver can fill a safety deposit box very quickly. It'll take you the rest of your life to fill even the smallest box, which are about this deep usually and that tall, with gold. That's a lot of room to fill with gold. But silver is a problem, and you have to have a location you feel comfortable with that can be away from, hopefully, from fire and theft.
All right. Well, Jerry, the last question is this. In your opinion, what would happen to the price of silver, physical silver that is, if the COMEX cannot deliver on their contracts, if people want to cash in their contracts for physical metal?
Yeah, they don't like that, apparently. They like to sell paper and not the actual product, because then you get involved in shipping and all that too. But I've never been a part of that market. I'm not been in the paper market. I don't buy ETFs. I don't buy miners, shares in miner companies, they call them. They call them miners. But a lot of my customers do. For simplicity, usually the price of silver and gold goes up, the stocks of the mining companies go up as well. But not always. You're buying a company. You're buying management that I have no feeling for whatsoever. And a company can go bankrupt even in the best of times if it has bad management. That's why I've never been much of a fan of that. But some people that play silver specifically, and the possession is a problem for them, will buy paper trades, ETFs, and things like that. I can't give you much information on that because it's just not an area I've ever been involved in that heavily.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jerry. This was pretty awesome. And I hope that those of you who are listening learned something from this. And remember, stay till the end of the video. I'm going to show you what silver coin I'm going to be giving away. And this is the entry video for it. I also had a lot of people ask me if I would give them a tour of the shop. And Jerry told me that I could do that, so we're going to do that too. So that's coming up. So ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and give you a quick tour of the store, and then I'm going to show you what I bought today and what coin I'm going to be giving away to somebody that enters to win on this video.